Going live. Okay, I'll let people filter in and make sure everything's working again. Although it still says YouTube's not receiving enough information for a stream, so.
Yeah, I was hoping to hear a bit about the Sheikah, and then you guys went offline.
Sheikah.
Alrighty, can everyone in the chat hear me and Deox and Exo and any other people that might be hiding in the Discord?
Part 2. I'm gonna spam everyone in the official Discord. They're like, here you go, next link.
Yeah, just a heads up. Don't be surprised if in 20 minutes to an hour the everything collapses again. This seems to be just a boomer issue I can't solve. So we're probably okay. Everyone's saying yes, they can hear us. Okay, so just a refresher, no Q&A until the end because last week it turned into just a Q&A thing, and Deox and I are pretty much talking about lore stuff the whole time. What else? Something Sheikah and ladders and yeah. Anyway, I guess we didn't get in there very far, so we might as well just start over again with deep lore, whatever the heck you were talking about. I already forgot because I got annoyed at YouTube. All right. Anyway, let's start.
Yeah, okay. So to those that didn't hear earlier, I talked about the difference between the deep lore, whatever you could consider deep lore, and surface lore. And to paraphrase, deep lore is usually the most obscure stuff, the most kind of the background elements of a setting. Usually metaphysics, cosmology, and all that stuff. And you don't really need. I've heard people that say, whenever we go into the symbolism babble, they kind of get lose track of what we're talking about, and that's okay. If you don't find that interesting, you don't really need that to appreciate surface lore, which is more, politics, characters, cultures, basically everything that you would consider more as, that would take the forefront in a setting. However, they are still intertwined, and if you do like the deep lore, you will come to see elements of surface lore that are very interesting. And that was pretty much it. So you don't need both. And today we kind of wanted to discuss a few topics. Starting with the Sheikah, because, Sheikah aren't too far away.
Yeah, they're one of the next factions. Which, yeah, just because it was cut off in our horrible test stream. I finished the ferry buildings last night, so the ferries should be out soon. At least for the patrons. I'll probably have a video of them in the next few days. I just need to get all their sound effects together.
It's gonna be nice.
Yeah. Oh, now I remember what we were talking about before YouTube died on us. I was going on about how, or you were saying how Hyrule Conquest is lore first and then gameplay, and then I was like,
yeah,
that's completely backwards to what the industry standard is today. And I'm like, not if it was the 90s. There's a lot of PC games where the lore preceded the game.
It's
pretty much any RPG.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have played Hyrule Conquest yet, and you've noticed how overpowered magic is, that is by design. That is completely intended, because magic is completely broken in the setting. Like Neff said, it does, work in a different manner than most settings, but it's still busted. It's completely busted. And there's very, very few cultures have built some sort of reliable counter to magic, and it's very rare.
It's funny because in my mind the magic in the game is just a visual representation of something else.
Well, yeah, but you gotta think that to the poor foot soldier, all he's seeing is a splash of water hitting him in the face, right? That's in the heat of the moment, that's what he sees. But yeah, I guess we could start with the Sheikah, because the Sheikah are very interesting. And they were brought up the other day in the Discord. And actually, they're one of my favorite factions in just how kind of you can discuss them in culturally, but also symbolically. And I remember the question, we talked about this before, Neff, but I'll ask again as a sort of an opener to the Sheikah. Are they wrong?
Yes and no. They're kind of necessary. They're a garment of skin. I'll put it that way, just to already confuse people. But
Like,
no, I really like the Sheikah. And the thing is, well, I was gonna say I also like the canon Sheikah, but I don't really like the way they ended up. I like the older canon Sheikah before they became
yeah,
techno wizards.
I mean that's fair. I mean they were kind of more vague in older stuff, so there was much more. There were a lot more possibilities to have your own interpretation of what they were, right?
Yeah, there's a
Now
lot
it,
more
it
room
kind
for projection.
Yeah, exactly, and that is certainly changed now. Obviously, it's very clear that Nintendo has picked like one sort of way they want to take them, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion, but
I
it
think it's bad.
does.
I
Yeah.
have no idea how you got techno wizards that build de-aging
Oh yeah.
machines from what was established of them beforehand. That's such a 180. I
Yeah.
can't. I don't. I I can't justify
I
that.
agree that Techno Wizard thing is kind of out of left field, but I'm talking about the core themes, and New Lore has they've hardly confirmed that the Sheikah are the shadow of the royal family, which was implied in Ocarina of Time, but now we have, it's been reinforced in new lore, which makes me assume that's kind of the route they're taking with it. They might change it later on, but I think that is the central theme. And they
Yeah.
actually finally told us what the damn eye symbol means, in their opinion. We can have our own interpretation of what it means, but
Was
in
it?
their, in,
I actually don't know what the newest because there was an official interpretation of the eye like years ago.
yeah, yeah.
Is it the same? What which one are you talking about? Because I'm actually not sure which one you're
I'm talking
talking about.
about the eye represents seeing the truth,
Okay,
obviously,
yeah.
and the tear represents the suffering the Sheikah went through carrying out the orders of the royal family.
I kind of call bullshit on that because it would be three eyes if it had something to do with the truth. One
Yeah,
eye implies blindness.
well, in at least in Eastern mythology symbolism, the wide open eye usually means seeing
I
something.
guess. I guess I never really interpreted it as wide open, but yeah. Um, I mean,
Uh,
I have no issue with that being what it means now, but I
I think
don't
that's a,
think that was
I,
in their mind years ago.
oh, probably not, but there were some places it was implied, and I guess that they just kind of took some of those implications and cranked it up to 11, while they left some other implications out. And again, I'm not talking about the techno wizard things. I'm just talking about what the core of their theme is. And I do like that you have this entire culture basically being enslaved in a sort of way to the royal family and their faith to its origin. I do think that's a cool idea. In a vacuum, right? I do think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're slaves to their masters, but also the faith they serve because Hylia, right? And I do think that's a cool thing, and that it doesn't necessarily even need to be Hylia, even if in your own fan setting or reinterpretation of Zelda, just some higher purpose
Yeah,
that they're called.
it's not highly a Nephi canon.
Yeah, but just some higher purpose, right? Some sort of ideal that binds them to that, and I think that's a cool sort of theme to go with.
Never
And I mean
trust a
that is
Sheikah, even when
and
they're
I
on
mean
your side.
even in Hyrule Conquest, while Hylia is not that sort of higher purpose, there is a higher purpose that
Yeah.
binds them. And so that is the same, and I think that is the main theme. It doesn't really matter what the higher purpose is, but it's more the fact that there is a one at all,
Yeah.
and that goes into Hyrule Conquest as well.
I mean, really, all I joke about this, but like everyone, even in reality, everyone is a slave to some principle. Just not everyone knows what it is. Even Labrina, they're a slave to an abstract principle.
Yeah, and I mean,
I can't imagine a universe that could function without like a hierarchy of principles. It would just I keep saying it would just be chaotic mush.
yeah, I remember. We discussed the Sheikah. This was a long time ago, and I remember you said that was like one of the few things I remember we really disagreed on, because it's kind of interesting. Is that you remember the Sheikah essentially embody the sort of the phrase "the ends justify the means," right?
That I do agree
Uh,
with. I
Yeah,
think that's a pretty good descriptor of the Sheikah.
and I think, yeah, I remember you said that you were way more, you would say that not in every instance the ends justify the means, right? There's a certain point where you go too far.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm a bit more liberal on that aspect, way more liberal. And I do fact,
Gnostic.
obviously, yeah, exactly right. Damn postmodernist. No, but I do agree that the Sheikah has taken stuff too far, but you also have to see what they've accomplished. And now I'm talking about Hyrule Conquest, right?
Yeah.
And and
Well, I guess we
as we
might
do,
get into huge spoilers. I'll try
yeah,
to keep them to a minimum.
yeah, I'll try to keep them at minimum. But for you guys that don't know, there was a certain period of time after the Khalen Civil War, uh, you've been nicknamed by historians in modern Hyrule Conquest the Golden Age, because it was a absurdly long period of time where there was pretty much no sort of conflict within Hyrule Kingdom as it is. There were obviously squabbles here and there as this, but nothing truly realm shattering. And that was largely due to the play of the kind of role the Sheikah played in that. They kind of maintained that. And I remember we talked about this, that I think Angel Falls and Codeman, we talked about this, and I remember saying that in my eyes, the Sheikah embody stability, no matter the cost.
Yeah. They're
Like they just pure
they're more,
stability.
yes. They're
Yeah, go
what's
on.
a way to describe them? They're like sorry, I'm getting distracted by sounds in the background. They're I want to compare them to Judge Dredd, but not exactly. They're kind of, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm having a complete brain fart. I'm getting kind of distracted by the chat. Actually, just to let people know in the chat, in case they didn't hear, we're saving questions and answers for the very end. So if you have questions, I kindly request you wait until DX and I get through
Yeah.
what we're getting through, because last week it ended up devolving into just a Q&A
Yeah.
thing, which I enjoyed, but we want to get through our stuff first this time. So hold off your questions till the end, and then I'll look
I'll
at
say as
Q&A.
much. I can take responsible for that. Like if there's something we say and you want clarification on something, then I'll try to answer in a way that
Okay.
I can clarify what I mean. But I can take care of that because I don't get distracted by the
Okay.
chat. So if someone asks something that is very related to what we're talking about, then it's more about, can you clarify here?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Then I'll try to answer that. But if it's very off topic, then I would suggest you keep it to the end, because then we can have more of a like free for all that is not tied to any sort of topic.
Yeah.
But back to the Sheikah is so the Golden Age was largely it largely happened due to the Sheikah. And
I would say it was
again,
maintained due to the Sheikah, not necessarily caused by them.
Yeah.
They maintained it as
Yeah,
long as it
was
did.
maintained.
Well, the funny thing is
Yeah,
they technically
and
played a part in bringing it to its end too. For a particular
Yeah, they did.
individual, anyway.
But I think also that is because when you talk about the Sheikah, it's important to remember that there are several sects, or in this case clans, that have differing philosophies. They all sprung out of the same sort of ideology, but ultimately there was a in where to head. And that will cause conflict, because I think for the Sheikah to be as institution that can actually maintain the stability they strive for, they need to be united. The moment there's any sort of ideological schism, their entire sort of ideal.
I apologize for the cat. I'm sorry. I'm getting tons of today's just like such a day of technological problems and distractions left and right. Sorry, I got distracted by the cat. I'm sorry. What was the last thing you said for the last 30 seconds?
As I was. So for the Sheikah's aim to even be, a real sort of ideal, they need to be united. The moment there's some sort of ideological schism within their organization, it all falls. And I guess ultimately that's what happened. There was at some point there was a schism, and differing ideas where to take the Sheik as a whole, and that kind of just messed things up completely.
Yeah, there basically was a civil war between all the different clans. Well, one in
Yeah,
particular. The irony is, despite
or
the
her.
fact of their different ideologies, they technically were kind of working towards the same thing. Basically, would have happened depending on which side won. I guess I'm getting into a lot of
Yeah, just
spoilers
differing
there.
kind of.
Should I just flat out like go into
Well, yeah,
spoilers
some
and be
minor.
like, and just warn the chat?
Yeah, like
We're probably just gonna go in outright spoilers. So here's your warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're talking about spoilers now. So
spoilers.
Impa. I actually think you might be behind me. I don't know. You seem. I don't know. You seem to be delayed.
Am I delayed?
No, you're not. Never mind. I'm waiting for YouTube to crash any minute now, like
Oh yeah,
again.
yeah.
I'm just wait. I'm like on edge, like ready to hit the end and restart button.
Now, so yeah, you're like Impa, and you just stopped. Is like the
uh,
biggest
no.
cliffhanger ever.
All right. So we're going into full spoilers now. So basically, you should never trust a Sheikah because even if they're on your side, they're not. Um,
On your
Impa
side.
kind of orchestrated the fall of the Golden Age,
Yeah,
which, funnily enough, at the same time, Bongo kind of did too. Just they went about it in different ways. Um, Impa orchestrated the invasion of Hyrule from Ganon and the Moblins, which you eventually find out later.
yeah.
She basically was like, okay, the stability is not good. The status quo is not good. The royal family is horribly corrupt. The Romes are retarded. We need to get some new blood in here. She's like, this particular Princess Zelda is the ideal ruler. I'm gonna put her in charge, so I'm gonna orchestrate a collapse, which was incredibly reckless of Impa.
Yeah.
It was really reckless of her, but at the same time, Bongo's like, I'm gonna orchestrate a collapse to gain power. So yeah, no matter even if Bongo never did anything, Impa was going to see to it that the royal family got a status quo shakeup, and a lot of people died.
And I just want to mention that some people might I know some people ask like how could the golden age even be a thing, like how does that even work, and that uh a couple of knives and some flash and ninja skills can get a long way, and that's essentially why if you go really deep into this stupid stuff and you look through the actual rulers of the golden age, you do notice succession is kind of shady, right? It's almost like there is a motive behind everything, and that is not unintended.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you put together the genealogy.
yeah, so like if you have an unworthy heir, you kill that heir.
Yep. So,
If you have like if monarch has you know if a monarch leaves a bunch of children behind and there's a question of who should inherit the throne, how do you prevent a civil war? Well, you kind of eliminate the potential players. That's a big reason why there was no major civil wars after the great one,
yeah,
because
the
yeah,
Sheikah, yeah, they anytime a potential conflict came up, like, no, we're gonna nip this in the bud.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, basically anytime Hyrule kind of falls, it's probably their Sheikah are actually probably behind it too.
Yeah,
They're like, no, if it's gonna fall on our terms.
and
And most likely Impa's tied to it in some way. So yeah, there's a lot of spoilers for Impa's character. She's probably responsible for. Well, no, she was responsible for the Moblin invasion that shook everything up.
yeah.
She was responsible for the later. Why am I drawing a blank? I'm drawing a blank a lot today. Ganondorf with the
Yeah.
Gerudo. You find out much later she's actually in not, I wouldn't say frequent communion with Ganondorf, but I'm like so many spoilers right now. Cause yeah, basically, the let's see, she instated the first Princess Zelda to power. She's like, okay, I like her. She rules with an iron fist. And then her daughter was basically a hippie and was like, no, this won't do. So let's shake things up. Even though that daughter was dead by the time things got shook up.
Yeah, and by going by the theme of spoilers, but I'm not gonna go deep into why and how.
She was not
But I know
responsible for the fallen sage, though. That actually
no,
caught
no.
Impa off guard, which is why she's surprised by the whole thing. But as you see, she's more than willing to freaking abandon the princess if because her goal is her ultimate goal is still to um preserve the ideology and the principle of Hyrule, so to speak. So yeah, yeah,
Going back to that, I think at some point Impa kind of realized that at some point during the Golden Age, the Sheikah kind of lost like the essential ideology that bound them in the way that the cadre was founded was kind of lost at some point along the way, right? Which ultimately you could say that led to a sort of schism because there was differing ideologies in conflict with each other. Ultimately, they sought the same thing, but how to achieve it, that was, kind of what caused a sort of schism. And I do think Impa kind of realized that at some point that, damn it, even, my like the culture I was raised in, that wanted to eliminate the corruption of the royal family is corrupt.
yep. That's the thing. The way the Sheikah operate, it's inevitable that it becomes corrupt.
Yeah.
What again? That's the whole issue with the philosophy of the ends justify the means. Like it's a ticking time bomb until you become a hypocrite in some way. Like if you're fine with that, then I guess by all means continue operating under that philosophy. But I mean that. To be fair, that the Sheikah kind of when they established themselves, they kind of went into that with knowing that like they risked it. They're like, okay, we'll deal with all the demons. We'll deal with all the shady shit. We'll risk losing our souls to protect everyone else's soul, basically. That's kind of
no
the
matter
way.
the cost.
But even that became corrupted down the road because you could say initially, oh, that's kind of noble. They're willing to sacrifice their goodness to preserve the innocence and goodness of other people. But even down the road, that ideology got corrupted.
And I mean that it makes sense when you have generations upon generations of children who are brought up in very terrible circumstances, right? And they're told that their ultimate purpose in life is to serve one sort of goal. There is going to be those that are disgruntled with that and will seek other ways rather than the one that was chosen for them.
Yeah.
And I think, tying this into actual canon Zelda, that's what, for example, what the Yiga clan is all about. They're disgruntled about that situation they were put in. If for the people that don't know, the Yiga in Breath of the Wild, they are after the Techno Wizards fell and everything because the royal family sort of abolished that sort of culture that the Sheikah had, and essentially, they're really.
I think you're breaking up. At least on my audio's breaking up. No, I think YouTube is dying. It's giving me warnings now. God damn it! All right, everyone in the chat. Can you still hear us, or is YouTube freaking out? Again.